Hi everyone, so I'm Bleiz, third year PhD at Queen Mary, and I'm going to give you an overview presentation on some of my main results to date of the PhD project that I'm working on, that is Sound of Care. So, with Sound of Care, we want to connect a number of different fields to create a self-management tool for chronic pain. Chronic pain is pain that persists for more than 3 months and is not better accounted for by any other condition, and known examples of these are chronic migraines and fibromyalgia. Pain self-management is a practice that enables people to live their lives despite pain, moving away from the paradigm of pain relief to enable people to actively reduce the interference of chronic pain in their daily lives. So, while a lot of focus in the current literature has been given to musculoskeletal pain, particularly, for example, with Go With The Flow, that introduced sound and specifically sonification in this context, we aim to focus our work on the biopsychosocial factors of chronic pain. So these factors are particularly prominent in chronic primary pain syndromes and can lead to a variety of negative outcomes, including anxiety, medication abuse, and social withdrawal. So we propose to use digital technologies that have shown positive results in improving perceived pain intensity, mood, and self-efficacy. And sound, of course, since, for example, music listening has been used for both pain and mood regulation. So after running an initial stakeholder analysis using the EASE framework, where we identified a gap in the involvement of carers, professionals, and families, and the limit in our ability to engage with the DDAF community that is being currently acknowledged in all our work, we decided to start investigating how sound technology is currently used and experienced in chronic primary pain care in daily life. So we chose to use a semi-structured interview approach, exploring the different usability items highlighted by the UTA-UT2 framework, and that have proven really effective in predicting technology adoption and usability barriers to explore how current design choices can affect the intention of use and the user's preferences. We drafted a 12-item table with 8 technology items and 3 design items, and we managed to interview a total of 8 participants from our 3 main stakeholder groups, and results were analyzed using thematic analysis. The main findings from our interviews align a lot with current literature on chronic pain and further pointed us to some very interesting nuances in the way people with chronic primary pain use and experience sound. So our study confirmed the known predominance of psychosocial factors in chronic primary pain and the role of music and technology as a distraction, a mechanism that is very aligned with current strategies in cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, for pain self-management. And a particular emphasis emerged on preferred music, or music directly connected with a person's current mood, with people seeking very personalized strategies to relieve pain. One key struggle that was experienced by participants across the board was to explain or understand the pain, and not being able to communicate one's own pain to the people around you and your family, for example, and the parallel difficulty to understand the same pain yourself might end up generating feelings of loneliness and frustration. And lastly, limited financial availability also emerged as a prominent concern for our participants. So from these findings, we were able to more clearly frame what Sound of Care actually is. And these concepts are also the building blocks on top of which we run our first 2 design workshops. So first of all, we can define Sound of Care as something that helps daily life, something that makes music, and something that you wear. Sound of Care stands also on 2 other main concepts that are pain ownership and the digital pain companion. So the concept of pain ownership generates from the very long and often very hard journeys that people have undertake into the healthcare system. So something that is very well documented in the literature and in our own interviews as well. And regarding ownership of pain, is the key step, like regaining this is a key step in the self-management journey, and a word that emerged a lot, multiple times, in both the interviews and later on in the workshops. So the digital pain companion stems directly from this, and from this request of a person-centered, easily accessible, on-demand tool that is available in real time and is able to fit each unique pain experience and serves as a meaningful support mechanism. So in this context, the sound generation process can be outlined in this 3-way strategy, when sound is used for mood and emotion regulation, to enact self-management strategies, and to actively empower the user to regain ownership of their body and condition. So starting from these building blocks, we conducted 2 design workshops to explore what is possible and in the design of Sound of Care, borrowing from the 4 key phases of interaction design delineated by Mackay. So each of the workshops was conducted at Queen Mary. The first one was in July of this year, the second one was in August. From our interview people, we recruited 4 participants who agreed to take part in our workshop activities. Our sample comprised 3 people with chronic pain, 2 females and 1 male carer, and the group had a mixed ethnic and age background. So both workshops were a total of 2 hours long to accommodate for a population who might be very uncomfortable in doing activities for a prolonged period of time. And each workshop had a first activity oriented toward data extraction and exploration, and a second activity transitioned into a tangible prototyping task. So in the first workshop, we initially ran a brainstorming activity followed by a second activity using video prototyping. And in the second workshop, we used the preliminary findings of workshop 1 to run in a collaborative analysis followed by a sketching exercise explored using soma trajectories, while the second activity was a very classic mock-up prototype exercise. So here I want to very quickly present some of the results that emerged from the workshops. So one of the most interesting findings was actually identifying 2 very distinct design spaces for Sound of Care with different needs and also different goals. One is the social interaction space, where the interface helps interacting with others and communicating pain. And the second one is a personal interaction space focused on pain management. Another very interesting finding was identifying a soma dimension of chronic pain that was described as tightness tension against relaxation. And participants described this experience as a feeling of overall tension in the body with which music could interact in order to release it and generate relaxation that would in turn decrease pain as well. And you can see an exemplification of this effect in this soma trajectory that a participant drew when describing their envisioned experience with a prototype they proposed, in which you could essentially change a song in a playlist while experiencing pain. So the last interesting highlight I want to give you is the focus on comfort, adaptability that emerged throughout the workshop and also in the interviews, actually. So this prompted participants towards new materials, especially e-textiles, and introduced ideas of physically embodied controls opposed to these automated agent recognition agents that can be effectively a possible mitigator of, for example, AI biases and other unwanted effects. So here I want to instead talk a bit specifically about what emerged in terms of sound and sound generation directions through the workshop. So the first direction is that sound might be better considered as a medium rather than an agent. So this concept can be also seen as function over content, meaning that audio features or musical features might not be the one directly influencing the experience of pain during daily actions, but music and sound might rather be chosen based on their ability to execute a specific function. So, for example, distraction. And this happens regardless of the content. So this translated in participants often talking about making on-the-spot choices, for example, or highlighting the importance of changes within the music. And this leads us to our second important consideration on the prominent role of personalization. So while we were expecting, for example, preferred music to come up as a major point of interest, given both our interviews, previous literature, so that's been widely acknowledged recently, we failed to identify specific genres or sound families in our activities, while instead some other components emerge, for example, the presence or the absence of lyrics or human voices. And these components might be further leading us towards this idea of music acting essentially as a proxy, working as a pain relief mechanism through, for example, distraction. And this is an interesting observation also if we consider the fact that the presence of lyric is pointed in the literature as one of the main characteristics that makes music more distracting while operating a focused attention task. So to finish up this presentation, I wanted to give you some of the future directions we are currently exploring with the project starting from the sound generation process. So given this importance on personalization and adaptability of sound, we are currently looking at generative sonification practices, and we aim to both sonify and respond to affective states and body sensations, for example, mood and pain, creating some sort of a dialogue between the person and the technology. Also connecting to some of the earlier presentation, I think here, one of the things I was thinking about is that in this case, the listener and the musician are the same person. So the person that generates the sound is also the person that listens to the sound. This generates a very interesting situation. So another key takeaway of our work is so far is this key role that the body has in the daily experience of chronic pain, and this clear need of people with chronic pain to reconnect with their body. So this link can be leveraged a lot through soma design practice, and we are looking into implementing them in our future design process. And lastly, we're looking at further investigating the connection between sound destruction and pain to better understand the link between these key aspects of sound of care, and to actively look for sonification dimensions, of course, for our future work. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Oh, thanks. For context, I'm a chronic pain sufferer myself, and I have a mild hearing disorder. There's often a quite strong overlap between chronic pain suffering and hearing hypersensitivity. I was wondering if that came up in your research, and if that's something you had to adjust for, or something which actually makes this more practical as a healthcare solution.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, I think this idea of hypersensitivity also came up, and I think even more this applies to this personalization. This is one of the reasons why I felt there was a real lack of some families, for example, because some people were, for example, mentioning soundscapes or specific genres, but then 2 interviews later on, the same person would be, oh no, I cannot listen to that because it makes me trigger. And that essentially exactly that response that made me think about this in a very different way, and made me think about this, oh, maybe we're not looking at musical or audio features, but maybe we're looking at function. And that is kind of like my response to that question. Thank you.
Thanks, that was really interesting. So I don't have a personal lived experience of this, so I can't comment with any real expertise, but you talk about function, and it seems like distraction comes up as front and center, and I wonder, is that the primary function that sound or anything else ought to serve for chronic pain management? Because my understanding was that there might be other ways of sort of engaging with that sensation and kind of incorporating it into your daily life and moving on with it, other than to essentially sort of block it out. And I wondered if you'd looked at other functions, or if that had come out of your workshops at all.
Okay, sure. The answer to this question is two-phased. So one answer is that this comes up in CBT literature. This is not essentially my idea, in a sense that CBT practice is the thing that has been widely acknowledged as the only thing that currently works with chronic, especially with chronic primary pain. I think there's an essential difference between chronic pain that has other underlying conditions, so that is musculoskeletal, so that you can point out that there is some kind of other underlying illness, or chronic pain that has no other issue. And what comes up in CBT is essentially 2 main things, and these 2 main things are distraction and value. So this is why I was looking at this from the start, essentially, and the workshops also confirmed this. So when you talk with people, people always look a lot to distracting themselves in a very anecdotal way, like out of the purely theoretical, psychological therapy practice that still points to this. There is also very practical, anecdotal way of people. So sure, there are probably other ways of doing this, but this one seems the most efficient. So this is the one I'm focusing on.
Great, thank you so much, Bleiz.